Welcome, Instagram. I am here going to be joined by Dr. Madeline Ofina. Now, let me see that I can get her on. Okay. Hopefully, she will be joining us soon.
Hello.
There she is.
Can you hear me?
I can. Can
How
you hear
are
me?
you?
I'm good. My Instagram timed out. My screen time.
Ah,
Right when we got on. But let me introduce you. Madeline Ofina supports spiritually and socially conscious humans in making the shift in their lives to a more soul-centered path through mental health education, coaching, and reading groups. Her work focuses on helping humans learn to change their views of self love, unlearn how society has told them to be, hone their intuition and internal voice, and embrace their wildest dreams and leap. And she hosts a podcast called Feeling Seen and Being Heard, which I've been on, which was lovely, where she invites guests to share their personal stories of resilience. I love that podcast. And she uses a unique blend of her professional knowledge as a psychologist and a student in earth medicine to create a bridge between the two worlds. She helps humans take ownership of their lives, address their shadows, and create new beginnings to liberate themselves. Welcome, Madeline.
thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. So I should mention that you and I met, well, we've met in person, fortunately, in Mexico, but we first met through a group that we're in, a decolonial healing collective run by Dr. Rocio Rosales Mesa. So we first met virtually, but fortunately we've met in person as well. And I really wanted to have you on in this series, now it's becoming a series of discussion about something that's been really close to my heart, sensual sovereignty, which I think of as embodied love, liberation, and the license to expand the expression of your true essence. And the first guest I had, Cosmos MD, had mentioned in her bio about how she thinks outside the box, smashes the box, and burns the box. And that really called to me as an analogy of what sensual sovereignty is as we get really connected to our body and to our essence. We can break out of those boxes, those areas that really constrict and confine us. So I wonder how this has looked in your life, or what what calls to you about this concept, this idea.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me on, and I'm so glad we met in Mexico. You're such a lovely person. But I'm really happy that you invited me to come and talk about this concept of burning the box. And
Mhm.
after you told me about it, we sort of talked for a while about what that means. And for me in my life, it means really, and you said this earlier, like there are multiple boxes that we either check or we feel like we need to be in. And so really kind of taking that time to reevaluate. And for me, that's what I did. Like I took time, um, I had a moment where I thought to myself, like, why, like, what am I doing? And I looked at all the boxes that I was checking, and I'm like, none of these actually fit me. They more fit kind of this external, narrative that we have about what
Mm-hmm.
it means to like live a life, right? And
Mm-hmm.
successful, or to be, you know, happy, or, you know, whatever, insert whatever adjective, right?
Right.
And, you know, for me, what I realized is that burning the box, or like really kind of trying to live outside of that box, meant reevaluating and looking at all the boxes that I feel like I'm checking. And it's so insidious. Like, we were talking about career, and career
Yeah.
sort of the obvious one, right?
Yeah.
Then there are also other boxes that we are a part of. And so I started to like reevaluate, like, what does that look like? And then, you know, I started on that journey where I eventually met you and Christina and everybody else in San Miguel and Mexico. And it was incredible. And so my story is still evolving. I think that, you know, burning this box and kind of seeing what landscape is out there has really been one of the best parts of this process.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes. And it isn't just like a process that just ends, or we burn one box and oh, now we're outside of that box, right? It's like what you're saying. It's like there's a succession of boxes. Sometimes there's boxes within boxes, and as we start to like step out, and then yeah, if we can actually burn them, then we find, oh, now we're in a different box, or now something else shows up for us, that we want to look at and kind of evaluate. So yeah, thank you for kind of bringing that up about this multiple boxes. It's really not, I call this like burn the box, but it's really not like one box.
Burn it all.
Yeah.
Right?
Is there a box though that has been like, maybe it was the starting box that once you stepped out of that, things really shifted a lot for you, or does that?
Yeah, I think being, you know, having DR in front of your name, right? You know how that's like, just being a doctor in general. Um,
Mm-hmm.
you know, I have a
Mm-hmm.
PhD, but there, you know, it all comes with different trainings and like
Mm-hmm.
a lot of different, um, you know, they really teach you how to think about things in a different way and how to evaluate things. And
Mm-hmm.
I think for me to realize that I didn't fit in like the traditional idea of what we're sort of led to believe what it means to be a psychologist
Mm-hmm.
really was the biggest shift for me. Because, you know, for a lot of people, your career is one of the biggest roles they'll have.
Yes.
And so for me, I was really good at what I did, and I just like put all my energy into it. And I'm like, I'm going to be so great. And then I realized like I'm really great on this thing that I
Mm-hmm.
don't enjoy. I mean, I enjoy parts of it,
Yeah.
it's joy in it,
Yeah.
but it's not who I am. And I
Mm-hmm.
ended up,
Mm-hmm.
I think I've shared this with you, where I was just sitting in my office, you know, the door was closed, and it was like a warm day in Chicago, right? And
Mm-hmm.
warm days in Chicago are rare.
There's just a few months for that.
Yeah. It was a nice, beautiful day. It wasn't too hot, wasn't too cold, perfect.
Mm-hmm.
And like my window was overlooking the courtyard, and I just remember people outside. Just there was music. There was some sort of like event, and so there was
Mm-hmm.
music playing. And I remember looking at the window, and I remember looking at my office and thinking like, why am I in this space? Like this isn't really what I want to do. I'm
Yeah.
doing good work, but this isn't for me. And we
Mm-hmm.
talk a lot about fitness, right? Like what's a good fit. So
Mm-hmm.
not putting value on things. Like it's not good or bad. It's not, you know, good if you want this or bad if you want that. Because some people, like some of my old colleagues, loved their job and they were so good at it, and like, you
Yeah.
know, they couldn't imagine themselves doing anything else. So like, I think that they should stay and do what they should do. So like, I think
Mm-hmm.
that a big part of it is not to like to acknowledge that if you that the box or whatever, um, yourself what's good for you looks different for.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, switching outside and expanding my idea of what it meant to be a professional in my field, or meant to be someone who has like expert knowledge in this topic, like to
Yeah.
understand that and integrate the other parts of myself, right? The
Yeah.
more spiritual part, the more
Yes.
intuitive part, and realizing that I could do all these things. Like I could still be a psychologist, could still hold that identity, or completely let it go and
Mhm.
create something new. And I think that's
Mhm.
where I came into. I just decided like I'm not going to be this person anymore. I don't need to be this.
Mhm.
It, you know, a lot of people tie it like this box idea.
Yeah.
It's to burn it because a lot of people tie their self worth to it.
Yeah.
And it's like, who am I without this box?
Right.
Like, who am I without the picket fence and the dog and whatever? Like, who am I outside of that? And
Mhm.
once I took the time to say, well, no, I'm actually all of these other wonderful things,
Yeah.
and I'm this full human outside of that, and I want
Mhm.
to do something that integrates all all of me. Like, I don't want to
Mhm.
decide one part and focus on this. I want to include everything, and I think that's how I created the work that I do. It's really embodying. So first of all, it's like kind of you have to embody the work that you're doing, right? And so it's integrating the spirituality aspect and integrating the intuitive and just helping people through it. I don't
Mhm.
work I don't work clinically anymore, but I
Right.
do integrate a lot of my knowledge into this because I do feel like we're all we're one body, right? We're one spirit. So like we can't just say like I'm just gonna work on the mental ear and that's
Yeah.
it. So recognizing how all of it is interconnected really
Mhm.
helped me recognizing that I don't need a box. Like I'm always going to be evolving. Like even if I put
Yeah.
my hat on and say like I'm going to do this type of work, that might
Right.
shift. But I know that everything that I'm going to do along the way, I'm going to put my full effort into. Uh,
Mhm.
it's something that I want to do, not something that's been imposed on me to want to do.
Mhm. Yes, absolutely. Oh, thank you so much for that. Your path really is it's a model of what we're talking about, just like not getting tied to a box. So many people, I mean, I was there too, where my identity was very much in this box, and I invested a lot of time and money and all of this into being a psychiatrist, at that time. And it's like it like you were saying, like for some people a box may feel really good. Like they may have worked very hard for that box or to be in that box, and to them it might feel spacious. But for others of us, like these certain boxes, we know I don't know what's going on outside. We know in our own bodies when it feels confining and constricting, and when it's so limiting as to who we are, who our identity is, and what our value is, what is our worth, what is all that. And so that's when it starts to feel, I think, kind of painful. Like when the box starts to feel painful. That's what's coming to me.
Yeah,
Um, is that something that you have felt too in your path, when the box that you might have wanted and worked for starts to it doesn't feel good to be in it?
yeah. I think that we get. I think everybody's. I think everybody's intuitive to an extreme, to an extent, and I feel like we get slow pings of like
Mm-hmm.
not doing something that's really part of where your own path is, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have free will and free choice, but I
Mm-hmm.
feel like we know who we are, we know what we like, what we don't like, and if we
Yeah.
continue to kind of ignore that voice, it will start as a whisper and it'll turn into a scream. And I think that's what you're talking about, like that
Right.
pain. Like it's
Yeah.
just no, you need to shift. Um, I knew early on, and I knew, but I didn't know. And we talk. There's this chapter in this book that I read that talks about like our intuition and trusting it, and knowing that it's not just some like thought that's there, that it's like a guide, like it's trying to tell you that this isn't working. And
Mm-hmm.
I had this good conversation yesterday about how, like, sometimes, if you have all of your hopes and all of your dreams in like this one thing, right? This one
Mm-hmm.
this one thing that you have for yourself, and like you
Mm-hmm.
put all of your energy into it, and it doesn't work out. Right?
Mm-hmm.
But then you tell yourself like, oh, I'm going to pick myself up and go again, and then I'm going to go again, and then at some point, like, you're doing it just because you feel like you should do it, and you kind of lose touch with why you're doing it.
Mm-hmm.
To it. So I
Yes.
feel like that pain that you're just describing is
Yeah.
a huge thing. I actually feel like a lot of us in the larger community, I think people are feeling. I think people are starting to recognize that
Mm-hmm.
about however I'm living, right? Because we talk outside of the context of careers, but like how I'm living, the space that I'm in, my lifestyle, my,
Mm-hmm.
whatever thing that I'm in, I feel like I'm
Mm-hmm.
in for whatever reason, you know, am I doing it because I don't want to shift, or am I doing it because it's the right change for me right now?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely. And I think with what you're saying is make me feel also that like this pandemic, which is 2 years now or plus or whatever we're into now, because it caused such a big disruption in, like we get into those grooves, we just like get up, do the thing, come home, like, and we're just like in a groove with our work, with our relationships, whatever. And then something of this proportion that affected everybody. I mean, there wasn't anyone that wasn't affected by this. I think is one way to like really shake things up a bit, and have people do a lot of reevaluating and kind of questioning and asking questions more about like the why, like you said, like, why am I doing this? Why am I doing this job? Why am I in this relationship? Why am I living where I'm living? Well, and kind of things that we maybe wouldn't have questioned as much.
Yes.
I feel like it's a bit of a wake up call to what's what boxes we're in, and what can we do about it,
Mm-hmm. And even realizing that you've put yourself in that box, you know, because it's so easy to like fall into it, because there's ease into it, because the way that things set up, it's like you're sort of guided down these pipelines, right? Like college,
Mm-hmm.
after college you're gonna get married, and after you get married, like it's like very culturally normed, right, to do all
Yeah.
this. And so
Yeah.
do something different and outside, there is a lot of like questioning and a lot of just unfamiliarity from our communities that
Mm-hmm.
existence. And
Yeah.
so it's, we, part of the people that I work with is like with spiritual awakening.
Mm-hmm.
And a big part of that is just kind of taking that moment, that aha moment, and realizing that, wow, I'm not in the path that I feel like I need to be in. I
Mm-hmm.
need some sort of shift.
Yeah.
Um, I think that is really the first step of burning down this box, right? Like it's taking this shift and running with it. And it's a process. Like, as you know, and I know that it didn't happen overnight. It started
No.
with a thought, and then like it slowly snowballed. But
Yes.
our lives are vastly different from what they used to be.
Yes.
But it didn't. It was a continual internal process of us like
Mm-hmm.
peeling back the layers and the shadows
Mm-hmm.
and like the ego, and just all of it, and just kind of going back to our source and realign, and
Mm-hmm.
doing the decolonial work and
Mm-hmm.
spiritual work, and like just kind of getting back in touch. And
Mm-hmm.
so as we talk about burning these boxes,
Mm-hmm.
it's essentially, I feel like it's an exercise of reconnecting with who we are, right? So it's like a celebration. It's like a piñata. Like, we're just gonna burn it. Like, like we're just gonna burn it down. Like, I think
Yeah.
it's it's a good thing to do.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's something that's good for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm. Yeah, it was, as you were speaking, I was reminded of a couple of things. One, that some months ago we did an Instagram live, you and I, on like stepping into the uncertainty and all of that. And that's kind of a step earlier stage, I think, of what we're talking about now, which is to actually like, yeah, you've stepped out and you've moved away, and now you don't need like the box. And also, such a good reminder that it is a process, that it's not like, it sounds really good. And I like the concept of like, we're burn the box, but we don't, I mean, you try to burn a box and you're still in the box, you're going to get really burned. So you have to like,
Yes.
step into the unknown, like start to explore what's outside the box before you actually can burn it. It does take a little bit of time, and and it is a journey. It is a whole process that we're both still on, as you mentioned. Like yours is still evolving, of course mine is too. This isn't just like a one, I'm gonna burn it, like, no. It doesn't happen like that. But I also was, as you were talking and sharing a little bit about this work that you're stepping into, I was curious if you feel, as it's kind of like what I see, knowing you and your path, what you're doing now, is this the kind of work that you wish you had found someone to help you with, like a few steps before you burned some boxes? How do you see your work now?
My work now,
Yeah, as it's evolving. I know it's evolving.
no. Yeah, it's evolving, and thank you for asking. My work now is really helping spiritually and socially conscious humans make this shift, right? And like we were talking about, it's a process, and I wish that I had someone to help me. Because I am the bridge between like the psychological and the spiritual. The cool thing about the work that I do is that I know when I'm working with somebody and they need to go to therapy. Like I am very quick to be like, you know what, I want to work with you, but you also need to go to therapy while you're doing this, because you know, it's necessary. I do have really healthy boundaries around that, which I think is really important. But beyond that, a lot of the work that I do is helping people step into their spiritual selves and see what that means, and do it from a way that's very socially conscious. So we're not exploiting, and we're not like doing this like surface level what do we call it, like this like spiritual bypassing approach right to it. So we're not like all in love. It's a really grounded type of work and type of practice. And so helping people reconnect with themselves through, so I have like reading groups. When I say reading, I don't mean like card reading, I mean like books. And so like we're reading Toni Morrison, The Bluest Eye, or reading Bell Hooks, All About Love. And we're like just kind of doing our own internal work. And then, I also provide coaching, which is helping people deal with the coupling of spirituality and your intuitive gifts. Those two things are connected. So when you really have to practice and work on your like mental health to really do the spiritual work, and vice versa. It's an embodiment. And so how do we do that? And how do we open your gifts and have you comfortable with doing that? Because some people are, if you are clairvoyant and you feel like you're seeing spirits and you don't know what to do and you're scared, like how do we remove the fear? If you're getting visitors in the middle of the night, like how do you create boundaries around that? Like these are all the things that I do to kind of help people who are on the ground, who are just learning to like connect with their spiritual gifts, and also work with the mental health part, like the fear and the anxiety that may come up. And also noticing like when our environment is affecting our moods. Like if we're getting more depressed, is it me that I'm feeling more depressed, or am I in a space where there's like heavier energy? So understanding the difference.
Yeah. Wow. It's very inspiring, this work that you're doing. And it really, from having stepped out of some boxes myself and into different areas, like I feel what you mentioned a couple of times about being very grounded. like the work you're doing is so grounded. And that does have something to do with a box that you've been in of psychology and other aspects of your experience to, like you said, know when someone does need something more intensive in terms of therapy or, some other intervention than what you're offering them at the time. And also like kind of bringing together with what you embody, like energetic, spiritual, mental, emotional. Of course, there's the physical aspects as well, but kind of being able to hold all of that, I think it's a really, really precious resource, your work and what you offer. So thank you for sharing with
Thank you.
us. And I guess we have a few minutes left, but I really would love for you to share like where people can find you, find your work, and yeah, if you have anything that's coming up that you want to share also. And
Yeah,
part.
thank you for giving me space to do that. So yeah, you can find my website at madelineofina.com, and there you can see the different services that I provide. I'm located in San Diego, California now. So if you go on to Meetup, and if you go on my website or my Instagram, there is space, or in the bio, there's a link to my meetups. I will be holding mindfulness walks in Balboa Park, so we can walk around and practice mindfulness practice grounding into the earth. What does that look like? How do we do that in a good relationship? And then I'll be having some events in person. Not in person, virtually, where we're reading The Bluest Eye by Toni Morrison. That's going to be happening on Wednesday. It's part of a reading group that I have, a book group. It's called the Banned Book Club. So reading on books that have been banned in various school districts. And then another sort of personal development book club, which is on Thursday nights. And right now, this month, we're reading All About Love by Bell Hooks. And next month, I think we're reading Sweetgrass, which is, I'll talk about that a little bit more. But yeah, you can find all this information on my website or even on my Instagram. But yeah, thank you for letting me share.
Sure. I mean, we were talking about this earlier, but this need now that people have so much for community, and whether that's in virtual spaces, so good that wish I could come to your your mindfulness walks. That sounds amazing. And that, I'm sure that will bring in some of like this earth medicine that you're also studying and an apprentice to. But yeah, so just knowing where to find those communities. And also, I think it's important to highlight that having spaces like these that you're offering are so important when we are stepping out of boxes. Like when we're in a box maybe and we're like exploring something else, it's really good to have that support, whether it's a one-on-one or whether it's in a community. So I think that's especially important now as we're talking about burning boxes.
Yes, absolutely.
And is there anything else that you wanted? I mean, we can talk for a very long time, I know.
Yeah.
And we have.
And we have, yes.
Many long conversations. But is there anything that you'd like to share from that's come up in what we've talked about, or something else that you were mentioning, one of the books? Or...
Yeah. I just want to mention that, Sonali's doing some great work too. And that I also want to support my friend. But and just acknowledge that this is a series, right? And that there are going to be many other people who are going to be sharing their stories about how they are burning their boxes. And so I kind of want to highlight that to give you space to share the things you're doing.
Oh, thank you. And thank you for being the second one of that series that it is kind of just like naturally evolving. And I love hearing everyone's stories and hearing like the real life examples of what this can look like. Like this is possible to step out of boxes, to burn boxes if we want, or just expand them, or you know,
Yeah.
however it looks, but that we don't need to stay confined and constricted or like small or hidden, or like we don't need to succumb to all the societal and cultural and familial, whatever all these pressures are that lead us into those boxes, that push us there because, oh, that's what we need to do.
Yeah.
So your story is super inspiring.
Thank
And
you.
also just so good to have been like just to join someone when they're on that process. I think it's very exciting, you know. And there's times where it looks very right, like scary, or just like I don't really know. I'm between here and this, you know.
Yes.
I've had many of those, and so
It's a lot of uncertainty, and I think that that's you know, it's very glamorous on the outside, right? It's very like Instagram glamorous, but there's a lot of uncertainty, and there's a lot that you hold, and that requires a lot of like emotional and mental space to hold the unknown. And you and I talked about that last time, right?
yes.
Everybody likes certainty, and I think that allowing their space for there to be unknown will create so much new opportunities that you don't even expect. And I think that you and I are both really skilled at like holding that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, certainty, what was just coming to me is like certainty leads you into a box. I mean, like it can't not lead you into some kind of box because you're like, okay, if I do this degree, or if I do that, or if I do that, okay, then I'm sure that I'll be happy or whatever it is, fulfilled. But you're definitely finding yourself into a box, whether you know it or not.
Yeah, because you don't need like to label whatever you're doing, right? Like you're
Yeah.
just exploring. And I think that as a community, people want to know like, well, how do you like where can I file you under, right? And then when you tell them like, well, no, I'm actually you can't file me under something, and then like the eyebrows raise. And
Oh,
like we were
yeah.
saying, even outside of the career stuff, it's
Yes.
like other boxes that we're checking, other titles that we're holding, other things that labels that we're putting on ourselves that we have to like kind of consciously. I mean, it's okay if it's hard to do it because it is hard. It's like we were saying, it's a process. So like
Yes.
constantly pulling back and doing it.
Absolutely. I see Cosmos MD. I see you here.
Hello.
We were just talking about how this is taking on a wave of itself, like these Instagram lives. So it's good to have you here, and anyone else who's still with us. And Madeline, you just shared so much, or helped us see more about this process of stepping out of boxes, what it could look like, and also what kind of support a person could benefit from who's doing this. And that's really where I think your work, I mean, in lots of other ways too, but that's one way I think that your work is really going to help people who are finding themselves at different intersections, you know, the spiritual, the psychological, the mental, and earth medicine, you know, just so many different areas coming together.
Yeah.
And the more that we can, like you were saying, embody, but the more that we can hold within ourselves, the better support we can provide, I think, to other people, because we've stepped out of lots of boxes. So we're not going to be pushing people back into them, you know.
Absolutely.
We can like guide them to something else, whatever that would be, because it's not a box, so we don't know, right?
Yeah. Amorphous blob.
Oh, thank you so much.
You're welcome. I'm so glad I could be a guest, and thank you again.
Yay. So we'll have this if anyone wants to watch it, and all your info, like how people can find you.
Okay.
All right. Bye.
Bye.